Hello everybody, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis with episode 2 of Codex Analysis, Tyranids. Today we are doing the HQ section. If you missed the last episode, which was Special Rules, Relics, Warlord Traits and the Psychic Discipline, I would highly recommend you go and check that out at the link in the description below, because they are pretty universal and I'll be talking a lot, particularly about the Special Rules and the Psychic Discipline in this episode. So the HQ section is relatively strong. I mean, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units plus a sort of command squad type unit in here. 3 of which are named characters. There are actually only 3 HQs available to you if you don't fancy running a named character. So we're going to go through the section. Now, you may think at times, this might get a bit confusing. All right, I'm going to be honest. The way the Tyranids work can be a little bit awkward to work around because they have different sets of upgrades for monstrous creatures than for normal creatures, but I will try and get through this as best I can. So the first unit is the Hive Tyrant, 165 points of goodness. He is weapon skill 8, ballistic skill 4, strength and toughness 6 with 4 wounds, initiative 5, 4 attack, leadership of 10, and a 3+ save. He is a monstrous creature who is a level 2 psyker with Shadow in the Warp and a Synapse creature. If you don't know what those are, check out episode 1. He generates his psychic powers from the powers of the Hive Mind, which is the psychic discipline, and he starts the game with 2 pairs of Silent Talent, which means he gets 1 additional attack. Tyranid weapons often come in pairs, so when you upgrade, you generally upgrade a pair of Silent Talents at a time, meaning that a single pair of weapons doesn't actually give you an extra attack. You need 2 pairs to get the bonus attack for having 2 weapons, if that makes sense. So in melee, as standard, the Hive Tyrant will have 5 attacks plus whatever he gets for charging. And the Scything Talons actually are not just basic close combat weapons, they're slightly better. And they are missing from my... Here they go. They're Strength User, AP 6 melee, but of course because he's a monstrous creature, treat that as being AP 2. So he may take items from quite a few areas: the monstrous biocannons, melee bioweapons, biomorphs, thorax biomorphs, and the bio-artifacts. The bio-artifacts are the relics, but everything else, well, isn't. So in terms of monstrous biocannons, you may replace 1 pair of Silent Talons with one of the following. Any pair of Silent Talons, should I say. A Twin-Link Death Spitter for 5 points. Now, a Death Spitter is a pretty standard but pretty solid weapon. It's a 18-inch, strength 5, AP 5, assault 3 weapon, which is good for close assault against low armor save armies, and it's Twin Link for 5 points. Twin Link Devourer with Brain Leech Worms. Now this is the most common upgrade, because with Brain Leech Worms it is 18-inch range, strength 6, AP dash, assault 6, meaning you can put out a lot of shots in one go, and you can swap both pairs of Silent Talons for these Twin Link Devourers, meaning that you can have 12 shots. I know it's AP nothing, but that doesn't really matter with 12 shots, considering your ballistic skill is 4. You'll be hitting a lot of the time anyway, and you're twin linked, so you'll do a lot of damage. Stranglethorn Cannon. You're only allowed 1 of these, or 1 Heavy Venom Cannon. So the Stranglethorn Cannon is 15 points, and it is 36-inch range, strength 6, AP 5, assault 1, large blast, pinning, which again is good against low armor save armies for keeping them pinned down, such as Orcs, Imperial Guard, other Tyranids, but less good against more elite armies, but it's still wounding on 2, so it should do some damage, and it's pinning. If you take a Stranglethorn Cannon, you cannot take the Heavy Venom Cannon. You're only allowed 1 of the 2, and only 1 per model. So a Heavy Venom Cannon is 36-inch range, strength 9, AP 4, assault 1, blast. So it sacrifices the size of the blast for a lot more damage. And a Heavy Venom Cannon, whilst costing 20 points, will do a lot of work for you. It's very, very good. What else can Hive Tyrants live from? Melee bioweapons. So a model may take up to 1 of each of the following. So Toxin Sacs for 10 points, which, as far as I remember, gives you basically poisoned all the time in melee. I'm still learning my way around the Codex, so it may take a little bit of looking around. Toxin Sacs, its close combat attacks have the poison special rule, meaning you're always wounding on 4s. This is not a good upgrade, considering your strength 6, you'll be wanting to be wounding on 2s all the time in most cases anyway. The only place it's good against is things like Wraith Knights, where you'll be wounding on something a little bit harder. Acid Blood for 15 points. So for each unsaved wound a model with this biomorph suffers in melee, the enemy unit that inflicted the wound must take an initiative test at the end of their initiative step. For each test they fail, the unit that inflicted the wound suffers a Strength 5 AP2 hit with ignores cover, meaning that against Space Marines you just kill a dude on 3s if they fail an initiative test, Guardsmen on 2s. But of course, there are a few things you have to go through first. First, you've got to actually take a wound. Then they have to fail an initiative test. Then you've got to roll to wound. It is ignores cover, but invulns are still obviously a thing. And that is 15 points. Adrenal glands, also 15 points. It has Fleet and Furious Charge. Now, Fleet allows you to reroll your charge distances, one or both dice. And Furious Charge gives you +1 strength when you charge in. Excuse me a moment, I'll just adjust this. Meaning you'll be hitting at strength 7 on the turn you charge. Does this make a major difference? No. Unless you're going up against a lot of things that are toughness 5, or you're expecting to fight a lot of vehicles with your Hive Tyrant. I don't think it's that good, though. And then you have... I've been looking at the biomorphs. This is not melee bioweapons, by the way. This is biomorphs. Sorry, I've got confused. And then finally, regeneration, which is 30 points, and basically is a 4+, it will not die. So at the start of your turn, if you've lost a wound, or any number of unsaved wounds, you roll a dice. On 4+, you get a wound back, which is good. Really, really good, and is good for keeping your Tyrant alive. Those are the biomorphs, not your weapons. Sorry, I'll just repeat that. And they don't replace your weapons. Personally, I think Acid Blood is kind of good because it punishes your opponent for hurting you in melee, which is probably where you want your Tyrant to be unless he's flying. Adrenal Glands is situational, and Regeneration is just flat out good, particularly if you're flying. In terms of melee bioweapons, now we actually get to them, you may replace any pair of Silent Talents with one of the following. So you have Rending Claws, which, as soon as I quickly find them, is Strength User AP5 Rending. Because you're AP2 all the time, this is kind of pointless. It just doesn't bother with your AP at all. It's basically a pointless upgrade for Hive Tyrants. Bone Swords for 15 points. Now, Bone Swords are power weapons that cause instant death on a 6. They're actually going to be AP2 because you're a monstrous creature, but that does a lot of work for you if you're fighting monstrous creatures, for example, and you're only wounding on 6s, you'll actually kill them, which is very, very handy. Of course, you'd have to take 2 pairs of Bone Swords to get the extra attack. Let me just remind you of that. And then finally have the Lash Whip and Bone Sword for 20 points, which is Strength User, AP3, Melee, Life Drain, which is the instant death on a 6, and Swift Strike, which gives you +3 initiative during your sub-phase, making you initiative 8, which is ridiculous. So that means that for 185 points, your Hive Tyrant will be striking at Weapon Skill and Initiative 8, Strength 6, AP2. Think on that. That's really, really powerful. But this is not the way most people run their Hive Tyrants. They run them as flyers. So what else can they take? Thorax Biomorphs. That was it. So the Thorax Biomorphs are basically like things within the carapace, and they cost 10 points each. You can only take one of them. So you have Electroshock Grubs, as soon as I find them, which is Template, Strength 5, AP5, Assault 1, Haywire. So it's a useful flamer, I suppose, for light infantry, but it has Haywire, which is good if you're going to crash into a vehicle. Desiccator Larvae, which is also a flamer. Strength 1, AP nothing, but Fleshbane. So it's always wounding on 2s, but it is AP nothing. And Shredder Shard Beetles, which is flamer, Strength 3, AP dash, Assault 1, Rending Shred. This means that you'll be probably wounding on 4s or 5s, but you're rerolling, and on a 6 you are AP2, which probably means that in most cases, Shredder Shards are the best Thorax upgrade to have. The Bio Artifacts I covered last episode, just as a quick reminder, the Maw Claws are 10 points, the Miasma Cannon is 25, the Norn Crown and the Ingal Factor are 40, and the Reaper of Obliterax is 45. A Hive Tyrant may take any of the following upgrades: Indescribable Horror for 10 points, Old Adversary for 15 points, and Hive Commander for 20 points. You don't have to take one. They're not like combat doctrines or anything. You can have as many of them as you like. Now, these are just on the Hive Tyrant page. La-da-dee, la-da-doo. Hive Commander. For each Hive Tyrant in your army with this upgrade, a single troop may outflank, meaning you can have outflanking gargoyles, outflanking warriors, outflanking gaunts of any type, or outflanking Gene Stealers, although they have moved through cover and infiltrators and do that anyway, or outflanking Rippers if you want something annoying. So that's kind of useful for 20 points. Indescribable Horror. Units taking a fear test caused by this model must roll an extra dice when taking the test and use the highest 2. This means that in most cases you'll roll 3d6 and discard the lowest. Now, obviously, because monstrous creatures cause fear, I always forget this, that monstrous creatures cause fear. This is one I'd obviously forget about a lot, but for 10 points, I suppose it's kind of situational if you're going up against somebody with a high weapon skill. Lilith Hesperax comes to mind, actually. And Old Adversary, reroll all fail to hit and to wound rolls of 1 when fighting in close combat. This is basically preferred enemy, but worded slightly differently and only for melee. This means that basically you're rerolling to wound because you'll be winning on 2s 90% of the time. And it's just really good for 15 points. Of course, if you are running the alternate set with wings, then this is a useless upgrade for you. And then finally, you can have a prehensile pincer tail biomorph. So many different weapons and pieces of war gear. So the prehensile pincer is strength 6 AP 5 melee. Please note that is resolved separately from a model's other close combat attacks, not affected by other melee weapons, biomorphs, upgrades, etc. So a Hive Tyrant with various weapons and toxin sacks does not gain an additional attack for 2 close combat weapons, even though he might have a lash weapon, bone sword, and the pincer, which is technically 2 weapons. It's not, and he will not get his pincer will not have smash if you choose to smash, and nor will it have poisoned if you have toxin sacks. Bear that in mind. It's used completely independently of your actual stats, so it's strength 6 AP 5 regardless. And finally, he can take wings, turning into a flying monstrous creature. This is the most common loadout to make him a much harder target to hit, and it takes him to 200 points base. The most common loadout, if you watch battle reports, is Hive Tyrant with Twin Link Devourers on both, meaning you just want a ton of shots fly around. Might give him the Norn Crown as well if you're feeling generous. Hive Commander is useful. Old Adversary if you're planning to melee, but generally you won't be meleeing because Hive Tyrants that fly are not designed for it, and Hive Tyrants that don't fly are too easy to kill. Speaking of easy to kill, we have the Swarmlord. He is 285 points, which is ridiculously expensive. But he is weapon skill 9, BS 4, strength 6, toughness 6 with 5 wounds, initiative 6, 4 attacks, LD 10, and a 3-up save, monstrous creature character. He is a synaptic linchpin for his warlord trait, meaning he has a synapse range of 18, which is great. He is a level 3 psyker with Shadow in the Warp and Synapse creature. He also has alien cunning and is a swarm leader, which are rules unique to him. As soon as I find his rules. So you must add 1 to your reserve rolls, meaning your reserve rolls come in on 2s. Nothing you can do about it. You can't just ignore that. And Swarm Leader, at the beginning of your turn, choose either your units or one from the unit within 18 inches from the Codex Tyranids. Then choose either Furious Charge, Monster Hunter, or Preferred Enemy. The chosen unit has that special rule. So if you're about to hit melee, you might give yourself Preferred Enemy for a turn, for you and your Tyrant Guard. Or maybe the guys with Rending Claws that are about to run into that monstrous creature, you want to give them Rending, or with Rending, you might want to give them Monster Hunter or something. Or maybe they're going up against a vehicle, you want to give them Furious Charge. You can do that, and that's really kind of handy. He is level 3, as I said, and generates from powers of the Hive Mind. Now, he has a relic weapon. He has 2 pairs of Bone Sabers, so he gets the extra attack. And they are Strength User, so 6, AP 2, Melee, Instant Death, and Blade Parry. So he has 4-up invuln against wounds caused by melee weapons. So normally he has no invuln and can't fly, so he is quite easy to take out at range. But in melee he has a 4-up invuln, which is really, really good, and causes instant death, of course. So he's pretty damn good in melee, but he's got to get there. Now, the reason this is harder to do is because Hive Tyrants are very easy to shoot down when they're on their own. This is why you take Tyrant Guard. You may include 1 Tyrant Guard brood for each Hive Tyrant, including the Swarmlord, in your army. They do not use up a Force Org slot. Now, a Tyrant Guard costs 50 points, and you can have up to 3. They are Weapon Skill 5, Ballistic Skill 3, Strength 5, Toughness 6, 2 Wounds, Initiative 4, 2 Attacks, Leadership 7, and a 3-up save. They have a pair of Rending Claws and Silent Talons, so they will get the extra attack, even though they... Or do they? Yes, they do get the extra attack. I had to just clarify the designer's note there. They have Instinctive Behavior Feed, which is bad, but they're going to be in a unit with your Tyrant Guard, with your Tyrant most of the time. They are very bulky for some reason, and have Shield Wall and Blind Rampage. Now, Shield Wall basically allows Hive Tyrants to attach to them, exactly as if it were an independent character, even though they're not. And if they're in a unit containing at least one model with shield wall, the Hive Tyrant, they automatically pass lookout ceremony. You basically cannot shoot a Hive Tyrant while his Tyrant Guard are there, because the Tyrant Guard will tank all the wounds. And Blind Rampage, so if by some miracle the Hive Tyrant or Swarmlord is killed whilst part of the unit, maybe he gets killed by an instant death pieplate or something, from the end of that turn, the surviving Tyrant Guard have Furious Charge and Rage for the rest of the game, meaning that they'll hit on Strength 6 with 4 attacks each on the charge, which is pretty powerful. They're nothing beyond ridiculous, but they can then be upgraded a bit further. So they're in ways they're Scything Talons, not the Rending Claws, with one of the following. So you either have Crushing Claws, which are +1 Strength, AP2, Armor Bane, Melee, Unwieldy. You strike at Initiative 1, but you are Strength 6, AP2, and have Armor Bane, meaning that if you're going to go against vehicles, this is almost a must. Lash Whip and Bone Sword, as we've already talked about, for 20 points. It's kind of good, but it's less good because you have less attacks. And you may take Toxin Sacks for 3 points each for Poisoned. Again, because of your high strength, you probably don't need to. And Adrenal Glands for 5 points for Furious Charge. If you are planning on getting your Tyrant killed, then they'll already have Furious Charge, but Adrenal Glands is just kind of useful if you want it. Tyrant Guard are good, but nobody runs them because all their Hive Tyrants are flying, basically. Then you have Old One-Eye, the Carnifex character who has got more background. I think he's one of the oldest characters out there after the Screamer Killer himself. So, he is Weapon Skill and Ballistic Skill 3, Strength 10, Toughness 6, with 4 wounds, Initiative 2, 4 attacks, LB 8, and a 3-up save. He's a monstrous creature and a character with the Adaptive Biology Warlord trait, giving him Feel No Pain the turn after he takes a wound. He has Crushing Claws and Scything Talons, Regeneration as standard, and a Thresher Scythe. Now, a Thresher Scythe, I'm hoping it's going to be here. Nope, it's a tail upgrade, I think. Yep, it's Strength 4, AP 4, but Rending, which is okay, I guess, kind of useful. He is not a Synapse creature. Let me point that out. He's not a Synapse creature, and he has Instinctive Behavior Feed. So you can't control this guy unless you've got another Synapse creature about. So he's Leadership 8, which is kind of bad, but that's something you should be aware of, excuse me. He's Fearless, so he does have to test for Instinctive Behavior, but the rest of the time he's Fearless. He is a Living Battering Ram, which is a Carnifex special rule, which means that he makes D3 Hammer of Wrath attacks at strength 10 instead of just 1. Alpha Leader and Berserk Rampage. Come on. So Alpha Leader, any friendly unit within 12 inches can choose to use his leadership for any morale or leadership tests. So Gaunts become leadership 8 if they're not in range of a Synapse creature, for example. But generally you'll still have enough Synapse around because of Tyranid Warriors and the like. Although if you want to run a thematic list with no Synapse, the Tyranids can sort of follow Old One-Eye as sort of an Alpha Leader without Synapse, which is why this is such a useful buff. And Berserk Rampage, for every successful to hit roll that he makes, excluding that Thresher Scythe, he may make an additional attack against the same unit, but that doesn't give you any more attacks. So if you get 3 hits, you get another 3 attacks. If 2 of them hit, that's it, no more. So Old One-Eye for 220 points is kind of a beast, but you can mess him about because of his instinctive behavior. You can easily just move units into a position that you don't mind losing them, so as Old One-Eye just crashes into them and just taunt him a bit. So he's exploitable, but he's a beast. Tervigons. Oh, Tervigons. 195 points, Weapon Skill, Ballistic Skill 3, which is awful. Strength 5, Toughness 6 with 6 wounds, 3 attacks, Initiative 2, Leadership 10, 3-up save, monstrous creature, not a character. It has a Stinger Salvo and Scything Talent, so it does not actually get the additional attack because it only has 1 pair of Scything Talents. So the Stinger Salvo, 18-inch range, Strength 5, AP 4, Assault 4, good weapon against everything short of a Space Marine. Mastery level 1, Shadow in the Warp, Synapse creature, and he uses powers of the Hive Mind as always. Now, he has a lot of rules around termagants, or termagants, depending on how you prefer to call them. Brood Progenitor, Spawn Termagants, and Synaptic Backlash. So, let's go and find the Tervigon, shall we? Here we go. So, all termagants within 12 inches of the Tervigon have counterattack, which is nice, but they're leadership 5, so it doesn't really matter anyway. Are they leadership 5 or leadership 6? Leadership 6. So they might get counterattack every now and again. Spawn Termagants. At the end of your movement phase, you can spawn Termagants. I'm going to cover Termagants in the next episode. Even if you're in melee, roll 3d6, and that's the number of models spawned. Place the new unit on the table so it's wholly within 6 inches of the Tervigon, cannot be placed in impassable terrain or within 1 inch of enemies. If you cannot place some of the models, either due to those restrictions or because you run out of models, so have a load of Termagants spare, the excess is discarded. If you roll, let's say, 12 Termagants and you only have 10 spare, you can only deploy 10. The spawned unit cannot move, nor can it charge this turn, but it's free to shoot or run as normal with its flesh borers. A unit spawned is identical in every way to a Termagant unit joined from the troop section of the army list and is treated as such, so they have got objectives secured in normal missions. They are armed with flesh borers and may not purchase any upgrades such as, I believe it's toxin sacs or adrenal glands. Adrenal glands and toxin sacs or any other alternate weapons. If a double is rolled, the Tervigon has run out of larvae. The Termagant unit is created, but it can't spawn anymore. You don't have to start spawning on turn 1. You can delay until you're in position, because once you roll a double, you're out. So the best roll you can get, the dream is 654, which is 15. Any more than that, and you are not spawning anymore. It's a really good thing, and it just basically means you can use a Tervigon as the ultimate objective camper. But there is a synaptic backlash. So if a Tervigon dies, roll 3d6 before removing the model as a casualty. Every friendly units of Termagants within 12 inches, whether they were spawned from it or not, immediately suffers a number of strength 3 AP nothing hits equal to the result. So every unit within 12 inches of Termagants takes 3d6 strength 3 AP dash hits. Cover saves may not be taken, and they are allocated as per shooting with the Tervigon as the fire. So the ones nearest the Tervigon die first. After all those casualties have been resolved, so if they're now at Synapse range, they have to hit morale checks, etc., remove the Tervigon from play. Kind of nice. It's a good way of getting around the fact that it's going to spawn a million gaunts, is that you can then blow some of them up by killing it. So the job here is focus on the Tervigon and forget the Termagants. You'll be doing that anyway, though. So it may take biomorphs, thorax biomorphs, and the relics. In terms of good ones, as I've said before, things like the thorax biomorphs are less good because you're less likely to be getting stuck in. Something like regeneration would be amazing, but the other ones are less good. But the acid blood, I suppose, if they want to get up close, could be quite punishing. Melee plays Scything Talons with Crushing Claws if you want to go into melee for strength 6 AP 2 armor bane, but I wouldn't recommend it. And melee plays the Stinger Salvo with Cluster Spines, which is a strength 5 AP nothing, assault 1, pipeplate with an 18-inch range, which is okay, I suppose. Same range, trade off the AP for a pipeplate. That's all right. You might want to do that. Right. So Tervigons are just good, I think. Tyranid Prime, the first non-monstrous creature. Oh, by the way, Tyrant Guard, they're infantry. I forgot to mention that. Sorry about that. Tyranid Prime, weapon skill 6, BS 4, strength toughness 5, which means it can be instant killed by something with strength 10, orbital bombardment. 3 wounds, initiative 5, 4 attacks, initiative 10, 3 up save, infantry character, with Scything Talons and a Devourer. So a Devourer is 18-inch range, strength 4, AP nothing, assault 3 is just a good weapon. It's not as good as the Hive Tyrant option with Brain Leech Worms, but it's still good nonetheless. It is an independent character, Shadow in the Warp, Synapse creature, and very bulky, as well as having the Alpha Warrior special rule, which means something. All Tyranid Warriors, all Shrikes, which is the jump version, in the same unit as a Tyranid Prime, use its weapon skill and ballistic skill rather than their own, which is 6 and 4 instead of 5 and 3, unless this is higher for some reason. Maybe it got buffed in some way, I don't know. But yeah, useful upgrade. May take items from melee bioweapons, biomorphs, and Tyranids bioartifacts, which I've already talked about, and also from basic bioweapons. So basic bioweapons, you may place your Devourer with a Barbed Strangler, which is 36-inch range, strength for AP 5, assault 1, pipeplate, pinning, not bad, or a Venom Cannon, which is 36-inch range, strength 6, AP 4, assault 1, blast, which is pretty good. So they're nice upgrades for 10 points, and it's 125 points base. In terms of what's good, regen is less good because you're going to take more wounds faster. Adrenal glands is alright, toxin sacs is alright because you might actually be wounding off 5 sometimes. Acid blood is also okay. I generally think lash whips and bone swords are the best way to go because you can just have a million attacks and you get a power weapon out of it. But rending claws could be good as well. And you may also take flesh hooks for 5 points. These don't replace anything. They are 6-inch range, strength user, AP nothing, assault 2. So in this case, strength 5, assault 2, AP dash. So Tyranid Primes are the cheap alternative if you don't have points for a monstrous creature. Alternatively, you can take Deathleaper. He's the last unit in this section. He is weapon skill 9, BS 3, strength 6, toughness 4, 3 wounds, initiative 7, 4 attacks, leadership 10, and a 5-up save. He's an infantry character, and he's got a kind of ridiculous stat line for 130 points. He has flesh hooks, slithing talons, and rending claws, meaning he has 5 attacks in melee. Has strength 6, AP 2 gun, and also got rending attacks and an AP 6. Melee attack and slithing talons are AP 6, but rending claws are AP 5, so you can use those anyway. His warlord trait is Mind Eater, meaning he gets 2 victory points if he kills independent characters in a challenge, which fits perfectly with his theme. He has Deep Strike, Fear, Fleet, Hit and Run, Infiltrate, Move Through Cover, Stealth, and Very Bulky. That's 8 special rules just from the rulebook. He also has Chameleonic Skin, which is probably going to be in the later section. So he does not scatter when arriving from Deep Strike. Ouch. And Pheromone Trail. If a friendly unit from Codex Tyranids arrives via Deep Strike, it will not scatter if it's placed within 6 inches of a pheromone model. Note that the model must be on the table at the start of the turn. So you can't Deep Strike Deathleaper, then Deep Strike everything else and not scatter. Sorry, that combo doesn't work. He also has two other rules. Yeah, 2 other. Also has Instinctive Behavior Lurk. I missed that. So he doesn't actually have Synapse or anything like that. He also has It's After Me and Where Is It? Which can kind of break the game, or can be kind of annoyingly broken. So, It's After Me, nominate an enemy character at the beginning of a game and subtract its leadership by D3 whilst Deathleaper is alive. Great for using things like the horror on it, or just being annoying, I guess. But Where Is It? Enemy models can only snap shoot at Deathleaper, meaning that blasts and flamers cannot shoot him, and only normal weapons can shoot, hitting on 6s. Why can't flamers work here? This would be really useful. It mitigates his main weakness, that being something like a heavy flamer to flush him out from cover. So that's annoying, but it's good for you. Look at it that way. So Deathleaper is another cheap alternative, but he is not Synapse. So he is probably a better secondary HQ and not a Warlord. So that's the HQ section for this Codex. Hive Tyrants are the most adaptable. Generally, they fly with 2 sets of Twin-Link Devourers, but if you want to go for melee, I'm not going to stop you. They could be quite nasty. The Norn Crown is a great upgrade for buffing Synapse, particularly if you don't get a lot of good psychic rolls. The Swarmlord is a combat beast, but he dies before he gets there generally, which is why you need to pay for more Tyrant Guard, making the unit ridiculously expensive. Speaking of Tyrant Guard, they're all right. They are very, very tanky, but they're not broken in any way. All One Eye is a beast, but is very easy to manipulate because of instinctive behavior. Tervigons are great, but if they die, they can be actually really kind of painful for you. Great objective campers, though. Tyranid Primes, cheap by Tyranid standards, powerful, and just generally very adaptable as well, though not as much as Hive Tyrants. Deathleaper, absolutely terrifying, hard to hit, great secondary HQ. So, that concludes part 2 of my review of the Tyranids Codex. If you have enjoyed it, make sure to leave it a like rating, subscribe if you have not, and if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below, including suggestions for future series. Thank you for watching. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and I will see you all again.